An eye-opening new investigation into the federal disability program and a system that some believe is rife with the opportunity for fraud. Among some of the more disturbing findings uncovered in a just-released NPR report, the government spends more money each year on disability than it does on food stamps and welfare combined. How about that? As of 2011, nearly 34% of newly diagnosed disabled workers cited back pain and other musculoskeletal problems as their reason for being unable to work. In 1961, the top reason was heart disease and stroke. And probably most concerning, less than 1% of people who went on disability at the beginning of 2011 have gone back to work. And they say that's what happens. Once you get on disability, you don't go off of it, and you don't generally return to work. And that is expensive to the federal taxpayer. Joining me now, Mark Hanna, a former aide to the John Kerry and Barack Obama presidential campaigns, and Rich Lowry, who's editor of the National Review and a Fox News contributor. So this is an interesting piece by NPR that goes through in great deal the spike we've seen in some of these disability payments and applications. And they talk about how, Rich, the states have this perverse incentive to try to kick people off of the welfare rolls and onto the disability rolls because it means the states don't have to pay for it, and then the feds do. And as a result, I suppose it's the federal taxpayer who gets, winds up holding that bag?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And just the growth, Megan, has been astonishing. Since 1970, the rolls have grown 4 or 5 times. If you go back to 1960, there were less than 500,000 people on this program in the entire country. Now we're above 8 million, and spending since 1970 has grown 9 times, which, as the NPR report points out, doesn't make sense given that we're all healthier. We have, much better health care system, and jobs are much safer than they've ever been before. So clearly something else is going on here, and part of the problem is eligibility standards were loosened in the 1980s. They become much vaguer, more subjective. So now you have more than half of people on disability are those kind of back pains you discussed or mental illness, things that inherently involve a subjective criteria. And it seems for a lot of people, this program is becoming a substitute for work.
I mean, that's the thing, Mark, is that nobody's going to question, you've got bad heart disease or, like you can't work. People understand that, but people think fraud when they see you can never work again because of your depression, and now the federal taxpayer has to subsidize your life forever because you're depressed.
Right, or back pain. And I think the definition of, disease or disability is certainly shifting here. I will say that, this was a really important investigative piece by NPR, and it shocks me that Mitt Romney would have wanted to take away public funding for public media after a piece like this comes out.
Touché.
The man, listen,
he'll never give it up, Megan. All right, you beat the guy,
down,
Mark, okay? Let it go.
Okay. We've moved on from Mitt Romney. But no, to Rich's point, and I think the growth that he points out of disability insurance is important to bring up here, because there are traits in the economy, there are trends that are important to look at here. We're looking at baby boomers coming to an age where they're a lot more likely, they're aging into a certain age range where they're more likely to claim disability or be disabled.
They're getting older and they're not feeling that well.
Exactly. Women now who, one of the eligibility requirements is that you've worked for 5 of the past 10 years. More and more women are qualifying. More and more women are likely to be claiming disability than ever before. And as this is an unfortunate fact of modern life, but child poverty has increased in this country, and poor people are more likely to legitimately be afflicted with disability. There are always going to be these spectacular cases of fraud that stoke the public imagination, but we can't lose track or lose sight of the reality of actual trends that are happening within the demographics of the United States.
And there's no question a lot of these claims are legit, and people have no problem supporting their fellow Americans in need, as I mentioned, Rich. But you've got the numbers are just so staggering. It's not just the outlier cases. We covered a case earlier today on Fox of a cop who was getting disability payments and was just charged with faking the injury when the feds caught him rocking out with his Brooklyn punk band.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and it's not just one case. I mean, you hear these stories all the time, in particular about some certain public service employees who are suddenly permanently disabled, and we have to pay for them through the rest of their lives.
Yeah, well, obviously the bigger these programs are and the looser the eligibility criteria are, the more incentive you create for people to chisel the government and chisel the program. And it's clear that's going on. And Megan, it's not just a problem because it costs everyone else's money. It's not good for those people getting free money from the government. They may feel as though it's good, but people need to work spiritually, psychologically, morally. They need to work, and some of this growth is aging. A lot of it also, though, is just lower skilled workers who are having a much harder time in this economy, and they're using this program as a substitute for a job.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mark.
I think if there's any curiosity or any suspicion that there's this widespread epidemic of disability fraud, I'd just point you to a study last year by the Government Accountability Office, a report that shows that inappropriate payments or improper payments to disability recipients is less than 4% of all improper payments to that the federal government makes in the course of the year. So I don't think that there's this widespread fraud occurring.
Just because they didn't unearth the fraud doesn't mean it's not being committed. I mean, you can get a doctor to say that you've got permanent disabling depression or back pain. That doesn't, the GAO might not be able to snuff that out. The numbers are just so high. I got to go.
And so we need to turn our attention to doctors as well. But this happens in the private insurance market as well. Insurance fraud is common there as well. So we need to be equal opportunity here about our criticism.
All right. Good debate. Thank you both.
Thanks, Megan.
Coming up, the son of a famous TV judge, my favorite TV judge, could suit mine himself in a courtroom.